Hello, guys, and welcome to Rise. I am delighted, excited, and super happy to have one of the people that I have personally been following for many years and read a lot of his books and had the privilege to spend some intimate time together when I brought him back in 2008 to South Africa. And he's really somebody that have impacted my life and my relationship. And I'm super excited to share his beautiful energy and wisdom with you today. So here we are, Dr. John Gray. He is a PhD and the #1 best-selling relationship author of all time. He is the author of over 20 books, including the New York Times #1 best-selling relationship book of all time, the classic, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. His books have sold over 50 million copies in 50 different languages around the world. John is a leading internationally recognized expert in the fields of communication and relationships. His unique focus is assisting men and women in understanding, respecting, and appreciating their differences. For more than 35 years, John Gray has conducted public and private seminars for thousands of participants, and his mission is for men and women to understand, respect, and appreciate, and work together. What a sacred mission, right? He is a popular speaker on the national and international lecture circuit and often appears on television and radio programs to discuss his work. He has made guest appearances on such shows as Oprah, the Dr. Oz Show, Good Morning America, The Today Show, the CBS Morning Show, Live with Reggie's, Fox and Friends Weekend, Good Morning New York, Larry King Live, CNN, and many others. Welcome, 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 John Gray.
It's really a pleasure to be with you again. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
You know, I have memories of spending a couple of days with you in South Africa, going through all the media channels, radios and TV, and listening to you speaking and lecturing with your passion and your incredible knowledge. I mean, you are a walking wealth of knowledge. And I really think that you are touching one of the most complicated, essential topics of being humans in this journey called life, and this is relationship. And I really want to dive today into the topic of how to navigate relationship after trauma, after experiencing some challenges in the past. And of course, we all know that relationship triggered that, right? Our partner is probably the best person to trigger our trauma. And so how do we navigate that in a relationship?
Well, I think the first thing is to unpack many of the ideas you just said, as if everybody understands it, because maybe we can talk about it. We should go a little more deeply into it. This idea of being triggered. And why is it that the person you love most, the person you seek out, the person who you want to share your life with, is the person that will trigger you? And that's because those deep levels of feeling intimate, vulnerable, even the sexual intimacy, as soon as that happens, it awakens a part of us that has been asleep since childhood. You see, as children, not that we're sexual as children, but we're vulnerable as children. And there's no more time than the first 7 years of life when we're so vulnerable. And it's important even to understand the term vulnerability, because, you know, for years, vulnerability, people think, oh, it means that, you know, you're hurt. And actually vulnerability means that you're affected by others. It could be good. You know, when you're happy, like when I'm smiling, I'm being very vulnerable. You know, if I'm stone faced, I'm not being vulnerable. So vulnerability is I'm letting someone influence me. You know, when you clap for somebody on stage and they bow, you know, that's the receptivity I receive and I give back to you. Vulnerability is so important in our relationships as adults, but it comes from the stage of development when we're little children, where we are dependent on our parents and their mood, their activities, they're arguing with each other. Children tend to feel either they're threatened or that it's their fault. So a lot of us have all kinds of feelings of inadequacy and unworthiness, and then defensiveness to cover that up. Anything that happened, and we often forget these things in our first 7 years of life, is where we store most of our trauma. And then later in life, when our heart opens up, it starts to wake up those old traumas. So we get triggered. So being triggered means, my demonstration of this for those who can see it is if you looked under my shirt over on my shoulder, on my arm, and if we took a peek and we imagine there that there's a big wound, a trauma, a wound, a feeling, I don't know why I feel bad, I didn't know what I did, or I feel I'm just not good enough, or I feel ashamed, something's wrong with me, or I'm comparing myself to a sibling or someone else, I didn't make good grades like they did. These are all these things we go into to put ourselves down or to put other people down. The wound is there, but the shirt's covering it. I'm an adult, hey, I can take care of myself, no big deal. But if somebody comes along and they pat me on the shoulder, on the arm, hey, John, hello. What they did is very reasonable. It's not a big deal. It was actually a sign of affection or warmth or just a pat. But my reaction to that, if I've got a gaping wound under the shirt, is, ow, how could you do that? You hurt me. And then the other person is always going to react by minimizing. He said, what do you mean I hurt you? I just gave you a pat. And this is what goes on in relationships when we use that classic phrase, you hurt me. Then the other person will always have to defend and minimize, because hurt is an emotion that's experienced in the primitive part of our brain. Sadness is more the limbic system of the brain, a more monkey-like brain. And then you've got the prefrontal cortex that would feel, oh, I'm disappointed. I thought you would do this and you didn't do that. And these are like three parts of our brain that now science locates in terms of very, very primitive. And that is our first stage of life. That's developing. That's the primary source of our self-awareness, is this primitive brain that functions due to evolution. And the prefrontal cortex really doesn't fully develop until we're 28 years old. So it's so easy to take things personally. Somebody gets upset with you, it's like, okay, what can I do to help you? As opposed to, how dare you get upset with me? How dare you blame me for your feelings? But it's inevitable that we will be triggered. And to understand that 90% of anything that makes you feel hurt or scared or bad or resentful, any of that has to do with your childhood, something in the past. It could be 3 months ago, added on to 2 years ago, added on to 15 years ago. And that may be the only thing you're aware of, but actually it all triggers deep down inside from your first 7 years of life, where our brain function is in a state of theta. We know now meditators, you meditate, they do all this brain scans research. And if you're in a state of hypnosis, where you're able to be under suggestion, or you're in a dream state, your brain is producing theta frequencies. Well, it turns out for the first 7 years of life, most of the time we're in theta.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
which means
that's right.
we're being influenced by everything. We're absorbing everything, and we take everything personally because we don't have a sense of self yet as separate from others or from our mother.
That's right. And so we carry all of that we received like a sponge, as you said, without filters, without judgment. We just take it on. And of course, a relationship, and especially intimate relationship, is the place where everything comes to the light and starts to unpack, right?
Yeah, so one way to summarize everything I just said, two ways, is one, the 90-10 principle. 90% of what you're upset about has nothing to do directly with what's happening right now. So, you could be upset with me and then I get upset back. We have to realize I am overreacting. I am overreacting. And this word overreacting, Freud started it, and then it became politically unacceptable, although it's a reality. And anytime you're upset, you are overreacting to what just happened, as opposed to it's an accumulation of it happening many, many times, or it's an accumulation of irrational thoughts, which are interpreted to justify that overreaction. Let me give you a simple example. In my marriage with Bonnie, and you know Bonnie, and she passed 3 years ago, but we were very happily married for 33 years. But still, up into the last 10 years, I mean, she could trigger me and I would trigger her. This was just a natural thing, but we learned how to take responsibility for our triggers. And we learned how to, in a sense, dodge and quickly pivot from blaming our partners to being able to process that hurt in a context that meant it's not all about my partner, but actually what my partner did was just like push a button and I overreacted. And of course, it's politically incorrect to say you overreacted, because often people are dismissive of our most vulnerable self. So say somebody's feeling vulnerable feelings and we go, oh, you're making a big deal out of nothing. That hurts more. That just doesn't help at all. So if you say to somebody you're overreacting, it can be hurtful. But at the same time, we have to recognize we're enlightened people here. We have a prefrontal cortex that anytime we're upset about anything, 90% of the time, it's your past activating you. And certainly bad things can happen and they will activate your past as well. But in a loving relationship, so many things trigger us and we don't take responsibility because we don't have that experience, we don't know. So it's important for us. So an example of that, how accumulation of the past affects now. So there was one of the things that Bonnie was annoyed by in me, you love your partner, but these things start becoming a little annoying, and then they get more annoying and more annoying. And if we don't know how to let go of those feelings of irritation and annoyance and come back to a place of balance, of gratitude and acceptance, as opposed to resistance. So one of the things she used to resist in me is that when we got this house after Men Are From Mars, I bought this big house, right? And it's really long, all right? And so to go from my bedroom to the TV room, you have to go to a lot of rooms and a lot of hallways and light switches. So when I was walking through the living room and dining room, I have to turn on the light. And as I'm walking through, you have to turn the light out, and then you have to turn the next one on and you turn it out. So I would be going through the house and leaving that light on quite a bit. And she would come into the room with her hands on her hips and says, you forgot again. Now, the first time, think about this. My husband left the light on. Oh, I want to save on electricity, so I'll turn it off. Not a big deal, right? Not a big deal at all. You walk through a house, you turn the light off, no big deal. Well, and also financially, it didn't matter if we had a big electric bill. And then she used to complain that we need to be environmentally example. So I said, okay, we'll get green energy. So then we had green energy from the sun. So then she said, we still need to have good examples. Oh, wait. So, but she gets so annoyed by it. Now, why the annoyance? Because she would say to me, you forgot to do that. And I would say, okay, I'll try to remember. And she'd look at me again. But after it happened 20 times, me turning out that light switch or forgetting to turn out the light switch was no longer the very act of he forgot to turn out the light switch. It became he doesn't listen to me. And he doesn't listen to me became he doesn't love me. I make a small request and he doesn't do it. What if I really needed his help? Then he really would not be there. When the truth is, and this is where you have to come back to wisdom, the truth is, if it was a big deal, of course he would react and right away and solve that problem. And she's seen it over and over that I handle big things, emergencies. I'm the emergency man. But something that's not so significant to me becomes highly significant to her, because in her mind, again, how men look at things differently. In her mind, it's just a little thing. Why can't he do it? Well, it's just who I am. And to me, it is a little thing. There's no big deal. And so my point of view is it's no big deal. That will always be my reaction. Her reaction, it is a big deal because she's not actually communicating I'm feeling like I'm not loved. And then we can have a conversation. Well, let's discuss all the ways I do show you my love. And to understand, as a man, I look at the world differently. I postpone doing little things. It's insignificant to me. I handle the big stuff. And now let's look at all the examples of me handling the big stuff. So don't fool yourself into thinking that just because I don't do everything you ask me to do, I don't love you. Because that's where the button gets pushed, is if I don't get the response I think he should respond, then I feel unloved, unsafe. I could die. So that this is the fuel inside of us. And we can see how these primitive parts of the brain, they can't be reasonable. And so we have to continually check whenever you're upset with your partner. That means you're annoyed and irritated by them. That's your stuff, or you're resentful of them. And that's why I talk about the 4 R's. You start to resist stuff. And if you don't process those feelings underneath the resistance, the annoyance, the irritation, there's a tendency when you feel unloved to think, oh, I'll give more love and then I'll get more love, right? That's another mistake we make. We give love to get love. We should never give love to get love. We should be love and then overflow with love. So when we start to give love to get love, that doesn't work, and particularly doesn't work with men. It doesn't work with, to some extent, it doesn't work with women. Sometimes it does. If you give a woman love, she will always respond with love. Men don't. If you give me if you tell a man, okay, you did a great job, here's all this money, I'll just go on vacation for a while. Men have a mechanism that says, if I did a good job, now I can relax. So you build into this place of resistance, and then resentment is, now I'm giving more, and you start thinking, I'm getting less in this relationship. When the mind goes into a bias towards looking at what's missing rather than a bias towards looking at what's good. And these are biologically proven reactions that once you start having this stress level in the body, your brain goes to focusing on negativity and ignoring the positivity. And you can't get out of it until you process your emotions. It's amazing. Or there's some time. What happens, we always say time heals all wounds. If you just take some time apart, it can soften these things. Why? Because when you take time apart, your mind now starts to focus on other things that it needs. And then you start coming back into balance. But when you're focusing in a fight or flight state, your brain goes into a bias toward 10 times more focus on what's negative as opposed to what's positive. And of course, you can't feel your love in that point. So you've gone from resistance to resentment, overgiving. Then you get to rejection, where in rejection, you just sort of deny your feelings altogether. So you don't feel that annoyance. You're just not in the mood to do whatever your partner wants to do. Really, this is what happens, is that you don't even know you're upset with your partner at that point. They just want to go for a walk, and you feel like, no, I don't want to go for a walk. Or let's go out and go to dinner. Not tonight for me. I'm not in the mood for that. Or let's go here on vacation. No, I don't want to go there. I want to go somewhere else. So this sense of irreconcilable differences shows up, when in the beginning of the relationship, we were fluid, we're flexible, we're adapted. You win, it's a win-win. Sometimes we do what you want, sometimes we do what I want. Now, if you stay in a relationship long enough, once you're in that rejection stage where you've just shut down your feelings, you have no passion in the bedroom. And clearly when you want to have sex, your partner doesn't. If they want it, you don't. It's just rejection. Everything is a yes, but, yes, but. Then if you stay in that long enough, and most people don't, they get a divorce at that point. But people who actually stay together, they just go numb. And that's called repression. And so they're kind of like comfortable together, at ease together, but there's no passion, there's no spark. They've learned to avoid the minefields, minimize their feelings, and sort of accept their fate. Well, this is married life. It doesn't have to be that way.
Sure, you just said so much, and I think you described the the classic, relationship kind of dynamic unfolding for most people, I think, right?
Yes, that's right. That's what happens over time.
Right. I mean,
it's 4 R's. You learn about the 3 R's in school: reading, writing, arithmetic. Here's the 4 R's of relationship. So what you want to do is recognize all of those annoyances and irritations. You can go back through them, by the way. Okay, if you start processing your feelings, is that basically, even when you're in the state of repression, if you give yourself permission to start asking for what you want in small increments, then you'll be disappointed and that will bring up your stuff. You want to be triggered in a relationship. That's a key thing to grow in love. You know, if you ask me the three most important things for lasting love, I mean, I'm talking about lasting attraction. The first would be processing your triggers. Don't ignore them. You know, many people passively watch TV all the time, or they eat too much, or they drink too much, or they do too much porn. You know, all these things are ways to escape and not feel what we feel. So all you have to do to get out of the state of repression is to give up an addiction. You know, if you watch a lot of TV, stop watching TV, your stuff will come up. If you if, if you drink a lot, stop drinking, your stuff will come up. It will trigger all that stuff inside. So you want to face yourself here and recognize, if I'm not feeling love, I'm not feeling love. I'm not being true to myself. And love doesn't mean you agree with someone. Love doesn't mean you're a doormat for someone. It means that you feel love. Here's what's interesting is there's some books written on love. I used to read a lot of these books as I developed my ideas, and I disagreed with a lot of things, which helped me realize I have an important message here. And one of them was, love is not a feeling, but it's an action. Now, you can have action from a loving place, but love is a feeling. Loving action is someone says to you, well, this is what you should do when you love someone. But when you actually feel love, this is what you naturally do. It's called generosity. It's selflessness. It's giving. It's being happy. And there, you know, my later work in my book, one of my books most recent is, I think the couple to Men from Mars is beyond Mars and Venus. Because what happens is as our world has progressed, which is a good thing, women are more free and independent and co-equals with men in many ways, and this is wonderful. You know, they're out there in the world, they're making money, but it turns out that we as men and women are majorly hormonally different. Okay, we're hormonally different, and this is established fact. Okay, you see, a woman's body is designed to make babies, and a man's body cannot carry a baby. Okay, so we have a different set of hormones. And those hormones that make babies, it's called testosterone for men and primarily estrogen for women and progesterone. Now, those are the gender hormones that will make a baby. And so evolution says that's the most important thing, right? Eating and sex are the most important things for evolution. Otherwise, you have no people. And they regulate. Now, what they also regulate is what's called your stress reactions, your fight or flight response. And when you're in fight or flight, this is when your body's making cortisol, it's a stress hormone, you're unable to access the positive part of your prefrontal cortex. This prefrontal cortex is the executive part of us. And the research shows that the left prefrontal cortex is what allows you to look at what's good and sees what's possible and sees the potential of things and remembers what works. And the left and the right prefrontal cortex looks over here to the left, and the right one will always look at what's wrong. See, that's what life is. It's about, there's problems and there's opportunity to solve them. There's good and there's bad. But what world do you live in? It has to do with the wiring in your brain. And trauma, because we're talking about trauma today, trauma will create always this hormone cortisol. And the cortisol will continue to increase wiring in your brain from the right prefrontal cortex to the left. So once you've had trauma, you're going to be looking at where could it happen again? You know, think of yourself on a battlefield and your person next to you just got shot. And now you're going to be, where's the bad guy? You know, I remember in America after 9/11, everybody thought, where's the terrorist? Where's the terrorist? Everybody, you see, we get into this hyper state. You know, right now in America, you know, we have this very traumatic thing happen on TV over and over every day. Everybody watched a white policeman kill a black man. Okay, everybody watched it. Okay, you see, on TV, you're not even allowed to show killing someone. You're allowed to show shooting bullets. you're allowed to show cutting off a head, but you don't actually see it cut off the head unless it's HBO or private TV, public TV. It's traumatic for a human being to actually experience, visually see someone kill someone. You can shoot guns, but you don't actually see the stab going in, see, because it's very traumatic. Well, in America, we saw that every day. Every day people saw that. And now you see the result of it, which is everybody acting out in trauma. Crime has gone huge, just massively. And what do you expect if you sit, first of all, you put people at home all the time, they couldn't go out during the COVID thing, and you show this on TV all the time. It's literally, when you go into watching TV, you go back into theta state. So you are constantly being conditioned and affected by, and it activates your stuff inside. What cortisol does is cortisol suppresses your emotions. Okay, that's its function. One of its functions is, let's say you're on the battleground and you've got to, protect yourself. Well, you can't just be reacting emotionally. So and you're in danger, your negative emotions will get pushed down. And when that cortisol is, and it's always being produced to suppress your emotions. So once you get in love, you kind of go, oh, now I'm safe. Now everything's wonderful. For a temporary period of time, your body says, I don't have to, it can like take a deep breath. Now I can relax. Now I can be happy. Oh, good. I found the person who loves me. I can be naked with them mentally. I can be naked with them emotionally. I can be naked with them physically. Wow. What an amazing experience to be married and have that experience. Well, that's something we have to work at, because once you feel that safety, kabang, your cortisol levels will start to drop. And this programming, which has been to suppress, push down, it comes up and we get triggered. And that's actually the biological mechanism behind PTSD. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about being triggered. So you were in a battlefield and you saw someone die. It's horrible to see that. Or you killed someone yourself. That's horrible to do. It's against our heart to do that. So we have to shut down. So you have this traumatic experience, and it's just, it's soul wrenching. So it's too traumatic. So your body suppresses it, produces cortisol. Then you come back after being in the dangerous situation and you can't sleep, because every time you go to sleep, you have all these memories. You hear a little noise. Oh, you're back on the battlefield and you got to shoot somebody. Literally, trauma comes back to us again and again and again. And sexual trauma from childhood will inhibit a woman's ability to have orgasm, because once she starts to feel love, then she feels unsafe and she has to close down again. So we feel love and then we close down again. We feel love and we close down again. And that inhibits us from what I talked about a few minutes ago, lasting love. Lasting love can only happen if we're growing in love. Now think about that. I look at the trees in the springtime and the rose bushes and whatever, the roots are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and the tree is more full. The rose bushes or the trees, whatever, they grow. Once you stop growing, you start dying. Now that's important. The love that we feel, if we're not growing in that, what does it mean to grow in love? It means every time you're triggered, that you use that as an opportunity to learn more about your own inhibitions, your own negativity, your own blocks, your own limited conditioning, the things you're carrying around. And it will come up one layer at a time. It doesn't all come up at once. It only comes up, and this is where the divine is with us. It brings up just enough for you to handle, but we still have free will. And you can choose to ignore what I'm saying and what other people are teaching, or you can start to grow to be responsible in life, which is, I have to learn how to handle my stuff. I'm a grown-up. I don't dump my things on other people. I take responsibility for the results I get in my life. So let's apply that to the work world. If we're doing a talk here on how to make more money, and I said, if you want to make more money, you have to change your strategy, right? You have to change you. You've got some strategy that's not working. That's it. And everybody said, how many people feel it's your fault? And they all go, yes, I it's my fault. You change a seed, you'll get a different crop. Okay, that's just life. Now, are we bad because of that? We have to learn how to feel responsible, but not feel bad. See, a lot of people, because they grew up and their parents beat them and made them feel unworthy of love, punishing them severely, whatever it might have been, growing up in fear of your parents who are supposed to be the ones you feel safe with. Okay. So we're afraid to say, I made a mistake. It's too painful. We're too afraid to say it because that triggers our stuff. And the way we push it down again is to deny what we feel, deny our inner shame, deny our regret, deny our embarrassment. These are just natural emotions that help us point out that, oh, I didn't, there's something having to do with me that created this result, and I can change me. That's the good news of it. But a lot of people, if you feel shame, they're terrified they're going to be punished. So they can't feel it even, as opposed to, oh, I made a mistake. Let me correct myself. Let me love myself the way I would have with my children when they made a mistake. I never punished my children. There was time out, of course, there was discipline, there was conversation, but it wasn't your bad, you should suffer. We all have that in us, you see. And if you don't think you have it in you, you're just disconnected from that part of you. But you see it in the movies where the bad guy at the end has some terrible thing happen to him and everybody goes, yay, the bad guy got killed. This is, we are animals, and we have this sort of guy riding the animal, which is our human self. And this is evolution. This is my father's nose, my mother's lips, my father's eyes. I have all their stuff inside of me. So if you can't find the trauma inside of you, it's in your mother, your father. But that's what's being triggered. You're always being triggered if you are not experiencing gratitude, love, positivity, compassion, generosity. This is who we are. Think of who you are. And we're learning who we are. What is the whole history of personal growth? And before that, religion and philosophy and yoga and Buddhism, everything is compassion and wisdom. And compassion and wisdom and love is who you are. And it's like the sun is always shining, but clouds get in the way. And what are those clouds? You can move those clouds if you start taking responsibility for, I am being triggered. So what Bonnie did when she was triggered every time, and as the years passed, she got more and more triggered. He doesn't listen to me. She'd be so frustrated, like, why am I not going to change? And then she figured it out finally. She said, I need to change my approach. John responds to love. Okay, so let me give him love. And so she came into the kitchen one day and she said, oh, John, with a big smile on her face. Big smile. She said, oh, John, I've noticed that many times you're turning out the light in the living room. And I just really appreciate that. And I smiled. I said, yes, I am. And she said, and sometimes you still forget. I just want to remind you how much I love it. And left. That was it. No shame. No, you're in trouble. I don't have to apologize for anything. And she did that 3 times. And even now she's passed, I still turn out that light and a smile comes on my face. I know this would make her so happy. So as a woman, wouldn't you want your husband to do something because even though he doesn't want to do it or it's not his nature to do, he does it because he's happy to do it to make you happy, as opposed to, I better turn out the light. Otherwise, crazy woman's going to jump all over me for it. Do you want him thinking that every time? Well, a lot of men think that because they have to walk on eggshells. And a lot of women feel that way with their husbands is, I better not say this. I better not do this because he'll get all angry. And this is where men, you got to wake up. If you want to grow in love, okay, then you have to recognize anytime you're starting to feel angry, you're triggered and you need to stop talking. Why stop talking? Because if you talk, this is where we come into our biological differences. Women need 10 times more estrogen to feel well-being. Men need to be making 10 times more testosterone to be having well-being. That means you're feeling loving and open, right? And if you want to be in love, it has to double. Okay, so now you've got this biological difference. It turns out that if you're upset about something and you talk, if a man does that, his estrogen levels will rise higher and higher. Estrogen is emotion. Anytime you have positive emotion, negative emotion is estrogen. And if you talk, when you have emotion, it will just get stronger and stronger. If you stop talking, testosterone will come back. So whenever a man is angry, biologically, men, you got to know this, biologically, if you're angry, annoying, and irritated with your partner or life, your testosterone levels are dropping and your estrogen levels are going up. You're going on your female side, and that will turn a woman off, and it also threatens her. Men don't realize the impact when you verbalize anger. It always has an impact just you're angry, so you want to cut it short and you want to stop the conversation with something like this. let me take some time to think about this, and we'll talk some more about it. That's it. You've got to stop talking. And this is one of the biggest harms that psychology today has done, is we're supposed to talk about everything right then. No, no, no. You talk when your heart is open, and you have to have communication skills so you can talk uh, without going into a stress response. But inevitably it will happen, because when you love someone, you're easily triggered. And then when you get triggered, and I have to say, most of the time it's a woman who's triggered. Doesn't mean she's wrong. It means she has a bigger heart. Okay. Her heart, and she feels more love. She gets triggered. And as soon as she becomes triggered, he gets triggered. It's a reactivity. It just automatically happens. It could be an occasion where a woman is very, very happy and a man got angry. That means he's way on his female side and he triggers her stuff. But once you feel triggered as a man, your job is to protect her. That's a protector role. You got to stop talking. She may follow you. I told one group of men, you got to do this, guys, if you want a woman to feel safe, because she can't have her estrogen levels unless she feels safe. And if you want to have great sex, her estrogen levels have to double. They have to become 20 times higher than a man's in order for it to go that place. So it doesn't have to be all the time that high, but that's why we have romantic skills. Romantic skills is where a man provides certain behaviors for a woman at that time on a date. She's queen, it's queen for a day. He attends to her. Women, do not attend to men. Your job is to receive from a man. That's the greatest gift you can give. And so there's all this whole art of romance. But anytime romance and love and connectedness are staying home together all the time, that's way too much connection. That's why couples are having so many problems today, is with these lockdowns, is it's too much time connection. Men, if they connect, their estrogen goes up, and then over time, a short period of time, his testosterone start going down. So then he'll pull away. When he pulls away, she feels abandoned, as opposed to feeling like, well, I got my kids to take care of, I got my work to take care of, I got my garden to take care of. She has all these other ways to connect. But when you're stuck in the house and she's not experiencing all these other ways to connect, she can get addicted to his connection, just like you get addicted to sugar. You see, it's sweet, it's wonderful, but he cannot stay that connected. If he does, he will become whiny, irritable, depressed, grumpy, low libido. All the worst qualities of men happen when they're connected too much, because that will cause them, that estrogen, too much estrogen in a man will push down his testosterone. So men need to have higher testosterone, 10 times higher, 20 times higher for that date. And women need to have 10, 20 times higher estrogen. If she doesn't, she's in a fight or flight response. See, this is a biological reality. We can no longer say, men and women are the same. Everybody's been wanting to do this. Before I wrote the book. That's why Men Are From Mars is so powerful, is that when couples don't understand their differences, they end up thinking, well, you should react this way. Like Bonnie would react like, why can't he remember to turn out the light? He must not love me. When that's totally irrational. See, it's not logical. It's logical for all women, you see. And so if we all think we're the same sex, if we don't see the differences, we can't give each other the due respect. We can't give each other the due appreciation. For example, if I actually do turn out the light, it's because I'm really doing something big to go against my nature. So she should really appreciate it. And of course, she's thinking, it's no big deal. Why can't you remember it? It is a big deal. Opening the door for a woman, for example, on a romantic date. I remember about 7 years. That's typically, if you don't have good relationship skills, the romance really subsides then. So I'm taking you on this romantic date and I'm opening the doors. She walks out of the restaurant. And at the same time, it was a double door. Some tall guy walked over and he opened the door for her with a smile. And she smiled at him and she goes, "Oh, thank you." Now, she didn't say that to me. She said it to the stranger. So the tone of voice says to me, "Oh, thank you. You didn't have to do that. And you did it anyway. What a gentleman. How romantic." Now, my husband, he better do it because I do his laundry. You see how the romance dies that way. And I had this amazing discovery. I was working on a women's only course with my daughter, Lauren. We have online courses at marsvenus.com, and she writes them, she does them. I just edit them. She's more brilliant than me. So we're having this conversation. He's talking about women need to give men time to pull away. as cave time. And that's the problem that solves all problems. Basically, she's so brilliant, so clever. But when you give a man space, he can spring back. That's the idea of the rubber band in my book, Men Are From Mars. Men pull away, but they spring back. And if the man pulls away and you pursue him, he never springs back. Just take that in. That's what kills huge amounts of passion in relationships. So, but she was writing, and I'd go through and check everything for accuracy and editing and so forth. And we have big discussions on this. It's fun, father-daughter discussions. And she's in a great relationship for 10 years. And so she's telling me in her thing, she's saying, and if you do this, when a man goes to his cave, then he'll spring back and he'll be romantic. And I said, really? Every time? Oh, every time. And I said, well, what is Glade's her partner? What does Glade do that's romantic when he comes back out of the cave? And she says, oh, he'll without my saying anything, he'll go empty the trash. And I said, and that's romantic? She said, of course, Dad. You see, when a woman has 10 times the estrogen than a man, she's happy and fulfilled. Then anything a man does above the routine is romantic. So she sees that as romantic. He cleaned out the garage the other day. I felt it was so romantic, not just taking your own dates and whatever, driving the car. Oh, he drives the car. I don't have to bother. That's romantic if you're a happy woman. If you're not a happy woman, meaning your estrogen levels are low, he can do everything the book says that should be romantic. It won't be romantic. And biologically, this has been proven in studies. It shows that if a man does things attentively for a woman, like I could give her 50 roses, her estrogen levels will spike and she'll feel, oh, that was so romantic. But if she has plenty of estrogen already and she's happy, and I bring 50 roses, she'll become happier. Or if I give one rose, if she's normal, she'll have the same reaction. This is what's amazing. It doesn't matter how big the support is. It's just, where is she? What glasses is she wearing that day? And if her estrogen is low, you can give her 50 roses and it won't do anything. It's too little, too late. So this is where women have to start understanding. Your job is to create more estrogen so that what he does can be appreciated when it's the right thing. And his job is to not be angry with her, not criticize her, not try to fix her, and take time to feel good, taking his cave time and doing the things that make him feel good so that he can overflow and give more to her. And I have to tell you, one of my favorite teachings that I've been doing since I visited you in South Africa in 2008, and everybody loves it. If you remember, there was that interviewer and everybody told me, oh, you don't want to go on his show because he's like very sexist. You remember him? Can you say his name? I think.
Oh, goodness sake, Garth, something. Anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes.
Okay. He was very popular. Everybody, no, you don't want to do that. No, I said, tell me about him. I said, oh, he'll be perfect because he's a guy's guy. I talk to guys. I understand guys. And so he was complaining about women, right? And I said, yeah, women all expect us to make them happy. He goes, did you say that, John Gray expert? I said, yeah, women should not expect men to make them happy. He said, it should be on every marriage certificate. My job is not to make you happy. And then I add to it, once I got him in my hands, I said, your job is to make her happier. And he goes, yeah, I shouldn't have to make her happy. I take her from good to better, good to great. There's a whole book called that in business, From Good to Great. Well, that's what our job is as men, is you can't take responsibility for a woman's unhappiness. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you failed every time she has her stuff come up. But when her stuff comes up, you have to learn how to not make it worse. That's all we have to do, is don't make it worse. She's quite capable of coming back to happiness. Listen to her. Don't try to fix her. Don't try to change her. Don't demand more from her, but just create a space where she can grow to find herself again. And that generally is doing nice little things for her. It's primarily allowing her to express who she is. That's expressing feelings and thoughts and whatever without getting argumentative or defensive. And to the extent you can do that, then she can find her happiness again, and you can then make her happier. And any help you provided during that time, she will remember when she's happy, and you'll be her hero. Oh, he's so wonderful. Oh, he's so great. But men don't know how to do that job. They take it personally if she's not happy. And what we do, bringing this back to the very beginning, is when our trauma is awakened, we tend to magnify whatever we're upset about. That's what it means. If something really should be 10% upsetting you and you're 90%, it's your past, unconsciously magnifying what you're upset about. That's called overreaction. Whenever anybody, man or woman, magnifies their negativity, the other person, particularly men, they'll minimize. Okay, if you magnify, he will minimize. And men, we have to watch it and keep our mouth closed. Maybe your brain's going to go, it's not that big of a deal. Now you have an explanation. It isn't a big deal. She's triggered. And what she needs is empathy and compassion, as if she was a little girl and she needed a father to be there for her. That's what we need to do. And that's very, very important. Now, for women, you need to just step out of the room if he's triggered. Your job is not to listen to his feelings. If he's triggered, you should get out of there as soon as possible. Let him deal with it. And that's, men have to learn how to deal with it. It's not her job. There's nothing she can do except create a positive space where you're not like, oh, not taking it personally that he's been triggered. Okay, that's the whole key, is not getting defensive when he's triggered, but let him deal with it. And he can, as long as he'll sort of go into his cave, and you have this temptation to want to go in there and say, what are you feeling? What's going on? No, go off and do the opposite of what you would do. Go off and be happy. Do something that makes you happy. Send him a text message showing him that you're out there being happy. You're not feeling hurt. You're not feeling victimized. You're not feeling ruined because your husband's not attending to you. You know, these are the things people don't normally think of. Literally, almost half my ideas is do the opposite.
So you have said so much. This is packed with value, packed with great advice. And I really liked what you said, make her from, happier. So it's her job to make herself happy. And you can just add that little bit on the top, that cherry on the top that will take it to, the next level. But
that's what women are looking for when they say, I want him to be more romantic. I want him to be more emotionally available. They get into this judgment. He's not romantic. He's not emotionally available, because she is not coming from a place of happiness that will bring him to connect with his emotions. What's very interesting is all you have to do to make a man emotionally available is to reveal your emotions. And of course, your positive emotions make him more interested in you and connect with you and feel his love and his affection and his warmth. It's her positive emotions that do it. But when he doesn't have those positive emotions, she's waiting for him to have those positive emotions before she'll have them. And she doesn't understand that's the woman's job, is to be happy. The man's job is to help her be happier. That's it. And it's a woman who have 10 times more estrogen and 20 times more estrogen if you're in love. So what does estrogen do? It says, I can be vulnerable. It says, I can be affected by you, and you affect me in all these positive ways. I challenge women today who are listening, try going 30 days without uttering a complaint out loud and without asking for anything more, and focus on just being fulfilled and happy and appreciative of what he does for you. Drop all expectations. Start today. And don't ignore your complaints. Write them out in your private journal. Just write them out, write them out, write them out. Just write it all out. So somebody's listening to it, because actually when somebody listens to your feelings, estrogen does get produced. Don't expect him to do it, because most of your feelings are about him. He can't hear you if your upset is about him. He can hear you if your upset is about something that happened in your life separate from him. And that's an advanced skill that I teach women, which is, once you didn't start to open up, because he becomes a better listener if he doesn't have to be defensive. If you're blaming him for something, forget it. He can't hear you. If I'm blaming you for something, you can't hear me. It's just going to get defensive. That's what we do as human beings. So let's try to apply some of these insights and start with just recognizing men and women are different, and not assuming that we're not being loved, assuming our partner doesn't know how to provide what we need. And in very graceful ways, we can begin to communicate. For example, if a woman wants to talk about her day and he's not blaming him, she could say, oh, I'm so happy to see you, and all these wonderful, wonderful things happened today. Or it was a disaster. It doesn't matter as long as it's your how you've been affected by your day. Go to your partner and share them. But often women will say, "Well, he seems to be bored by it. He says I talk too much." I say, "Well, I'd be bored too if you talk too much because you're just giving the surface." You see, communication has layers. I can't relate to your wedding dress didn't fit or your niece had a problem with this and this. And I don't relate to those as issues for me. But if you were to say, I was so frustrated because I really wanted this to happen and it didn't happen, I was disappointed. And now I'm so concerned about this and this, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I'll be fully present for that because there's emotions involved. You see, when you reveal your emotions, that's vulnerability. Talking about what happened is not vulnerability. Men need women's vulnerability, and then we become vulnerable because you will affect us. See, women have the biggest impact on males. That's why after a guy divorces, he's married 3 years later. For women, 9 years if they do get involved. We need women to feel love. Women have many ways to feel love, but men don't. There's a primary way we feel love is through a woman and her vulnerability. Because when she's affected by us, then that affects us. So when you're feeling happy, I feel successful. The number one hormone that helps men have well-being is testosterone, and men need 10 times more. And it's through you that I can feel both estrogen, I can feel what you feel, and I can feel successful because I'm doing something of value to you. So you say to a man, I just want to talk about this. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to fix anything. I just need to talk about it. It helps me sort it out inside. And then I feel so much better. Would you just not say anything and listen to me for 10 minutes? And he can do that. Limit the time, don't blame him, and share your emotions, and you'll have undivided attention for 10 minutes. It's amazing because he can relate to emotions. He can't relate to your stories. It can be quite boring after a while to various degrees. Now, let's say you have the same occupation and you're talking about something. Well, then he's going to dig in there. But our worlds often are so different in terms of the things that cause stress in a woman's body versus a man's body. And so we don't necessarily relate because connection is through relatedness, but he can always relate to your vulnerability and your emotions. And when you have emotions, which are not blaming him, because remember, if emotions are blaming him, you're triggered, bottom line. Okay, you're triggered. But if your work is triggering you, then he'll like connect to you. Yeah, I can understand how you feel. And then he'll try to solve it. Mm-hmm. That's his instinct. Oh, he'll want to minimize. He'll want to say, oh, you shouldn't worry about that. Oh, no. It's not a big deal. This is $1 million phrase I'm giving you, women. This took years to come up with. Like the other one for men, don't have to make her happy, you can make her happier. Frees a man to not take things so personally. But for women, $1 million phrase, if you want a man to hear you, is start with like, honey, it's not a big deal, but I just want to tell you what happened. Okay. And then you can even do that if you want to complain about him. You should always do. Although in the beginning, I suggest back off and see the power of not complaining. And then you can start to ask for more as opposed to complain to get more. It's very primitive behavior to complain to get more. Use negativity to get more, your brain becomes more negative. It's a simple thing. It's like if we use violence to get what we want, then to achieve peace through violence, then we have to have violence to sustain peace. You see how that works? I didn't finish up one point. I just want to say it real quickly. 3 ways to grow in love. One is the first, of course, most important is when you're triggered, to use that trigger as a way for you to become more loving, not to change them. That's very important. So that's how you grow. The next one is, and I'll give you an example of that. One time Bonnie said to me, I asked her, how do you rate me as a husband? This is after about 20 years marriage. She says, you're like the best father to our children I could imagine. As a husband, you're not perfect, but you've given me the greatest gift any woman could want. I said, what's that? And she says, John, I know I can upset you. And whenever I upset you, you go to your cave and I don't know what magic you do, but you always come back with more love. Not just come back loving, come back with more love. And that's my commitment, always to grow in love. So that's really key, is that you're overcoming your buttons being pushed. The second thing, if you want lasting love, is learning how to process those triggers. Of course, you got to learn how to process it by recognizing the things you do that trigger your partner and how you can stop that. You got to learn to like complaining. That's one thing I talked about today. Stop complaining. Then recognize you're being triggered when you're complaining and do something to make yourself happy. And then when you're already feeling happy, then go give more to your partner from a place of feeling happy and fulfilled from hormonal balance. See, I get into the hormones in my book, Beyond Mars and Venus, but women, you got to build up your hormones of estrogen, then bring in your testosterone by giving them something, because that's what giving is. Giving is your male side. Receiving is your female side. Another big aha, everybody thinks, oh, giving is feminine. No, men give their lives for women. Men give everything, difficult, dangerous, all the throughout history. You know, we're the ones who sacrificed ourselves for women. That's the giving part of us. Women is about learning how to receive. That when you receive, you're vulnerable, you're affected by others, you feel love, you feel happiness, you feel joy. All that is your feminine side. Now, you come back to your estrogen side, then you give more, and then you ask for more, but in a way that's strategic, not coming from a demand, and also in small increments with a lot of appreciation. So that's step 2, is how you continue to create change in your relationship by learning to ask for what you want, having gone through the first 3 steps. Having done all that, okay, you're growing in love, you're handling your triggers, you're learning how to ask for more and get it. The third is great sex. If people say, I want to feel more physical attraction, you have to learn how to have great sex. And I'll just say this, I'm excited to get my ideas to South Africa and wherever else we're going, because most people don't know these things. One of the key things when it comes to a sexual relationship is too much sex can kill your libido. Not enough sex can kill your libido. You got to find the right balance. If you eat too much food, you get fat, right? if you don't eat food, you get really bony and skinny. You got to find the balance. And it turns out science still shows the way. Science shows that when a man ejaculates, his testosterone levels will go down to baseline, and it will stay at baseline for 6 days. On the 7th day, it will increase 50%. Just get that, men. And then it will go back down to baseline. If you don't have sex, let's say Saturday night, it just stays at baseline all the time. It comes up to 50% more, but you don't have sex, it will go back down to baseline and it will stay at baseline. If you have sex twice a week, you'll never get that 50% bump. If you want, just try this. This is science has proven this, but if you want to boost up your sex life, try fasting for 6 days from any form of sex that might last, it might end in an ejaculation. You can kiss, you can do foreplay, as long as the man doesn't ejaculate, no problem. And he only ejaculates once a week, then he'll go back down to baseline, but he's not going to become like other men who, as they get older, baseline just slowly goes down, 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 either from not having sex or by masturbating too much or by having too much sex. You got to find the balance. And this is amazing. I love the science because, people look to me, I'm a sex expert. I wrote a best-selling book for a year #1 on sex, Mars, Venus in the bedroom. And people would always ask me, well, how often do you have sex? Like if you're some kind of expert, you're going to have sex all the time. And I say once a week. And they kind of go, what? I say, yeah, but it's really great. It's quality over quantity. And people don't get that. They think, oh, you just don't have the desire. I say, are you kidding? I can have sex anytime, but I have it once a week because over time now, my testosterone is 50% higher than when I was a young man. That's my baseline. So I go up to 100% more on my Saturday night sex. So this is like, try it, to take it into consideration. And people are so addicted to sex. Oh, but I got to have my sex, or I got to keep up with the Joneses, whatever it is. And then after 7 years, they're not having passionate sex anymore. So you got to rekindle it. And that's one of the ways that can do it. And I did that in short. There's a lot more to that story, but we all need good sex education, I think. And I think one of the best books is Mars, Venus in the Bedroom. It's so eloquently done. But I didn't have the scientific research at that time. That's why I wanted to throw that in. Because if we're talking about how to grow in love and passion over time, you got to go through those 3 steps. There's got to be that regular sex. It's very important. Because if you don't have regular sex, then the baseline just slowly starts going down, down, down. You got to use it or lose it. And you do it too much, it wears out.
Sure, so much here to digest. I'm sure you guys have to watch this interview more than once, more than twice to really get the information synced in, because you, John, can talk. I know, I've seen you. You
Yeah.
can talk, for days, and you just have that flow of wisdom pouring out, and you wrote so many books. So yeah, I really recommend you guys to get your hands on the books mentioned and check this work. And as you saw, there's so much science-based education that we have not received growing up. And
No, we don't receive, we're actually receiving the opposite, as if
mhm,
your sex is a choice. It's not a
mhm,
choice. This is a million years of evolution has set you up to having certain biological hormonal needs. Otherwise, we can't reproduce as a race. So that has been always the most important factor that actually it makes us healthy. I'm so concerned about the people today who are changing their sex and taking hormones.
mm,
We're now seeing now down the line the devastating effects of depression and anxiety and stress, and it will be early death too, because the things that keep us alive is the primitive part of the brain. You see, that's what, if you cut yourself, it's that primitive part of the brain that heals it, regenerates your body. And if you don't have, if you're in a state of chronic stress, you can't regenerate. And the only way you can get out of that state of chronic stress, just on a physical level, is doing things that support the male hormone if you're males, and the support the female hormone if you're a woman. And balancing it is a real key factor, keeping the
mm,
balance. And one of the reasons we have so much gender confusion today, one of the reasons, there's many, is the fact that a higher consciousness is coming into the planet. And that higher consciousness is both male and female, meaning that my soul, the more connected you are to your spirit, your soul, however you want to put it, is both masculine and feminine. As a soul, eternal being, I'm masculine and feminine. I pick one gender each life, and because I have certain lessons to learn. But once you come in with easy access to both your male and female side, it's much easier for men to get lost on their female. It's much easier for women to get lost on their male, because that would be called out of balance. See, when you eat
mm,
ice cream, for example, you just want to keep going unless you have willpower, right? You see that's not good for you. You eat too much ice cream, too many desserts. And you say, oh, this feels really good. Just because something feels really good doesn't mean it's good for you. And
mm,
ironically, going out of balance feels really, really good when it comes to your gender. And coming back takes a huge act of wisdom and willpower and motivation, just like any drug addict would have to go
mm,
through. And so, to listen to a child tell you what they feel best at is not the right thing to do. We need to
mm,
apply discipline to our children. We
mm,
need to teach them, little boys, how to be boys, and we need to teach little girls how to be girls. We need to teach young men how to be men. We need to teach
mm,
young women how to be women. These are like priorities. And what is the motivating factor? Well, of course, wisdom teaches us to do it. Following your feelings will actually throw you further out of balance. This is how I
mm,
feel. I say, okay, I understand. You're out of balance. Going out of balance always feels really, really good. Back in the 60s, I grew my hair out like a girl. Okay. This is, I was a hippie and got into my outfits. I had buckles and boots and bell bottom pants and demonstrated for peace, would not go to Vietnam. I'm on my female side. It's all free love and happiness and joy and getting high. Okay. Did all that stuff. Boy, it felt really good to go over there till I was depressed. See, all my testosterone was sinking down as I was going to estrogen land. Simultaneously, women were all going over to their male side. They're like, we're going to run the world, we're going to be independent, we're going to do all this stuff. And not every woman, not every man went as far as I did, but felt really good to be so empowered female. Look what I can do. But why can't I fall in love? Why is it no man's ever good enough for me? Why am I not happy with myself? Why am I never satisfied? Why am I overwhelmed all the time? Well, now we know, measure your hormones. You're making testosterone, not enough estrogen. So the answer is, don't give up your male side if you're a woman. Balance it with by strengthening your female side. That's all I'm saying. I want women to run the world with men side by side. That's going to be a beautiful place one day. But
mm,
we're not going to get there by not liking men. And men are amazing. So to come back to your female side allows you to like men. And when you basically, if you're a man, come back to your male side and be selfless in service to the world and give up your addictions, give up your laziness, give up your indulgences, give up your anger, all these things. So that the dark side of masculinity, when it loses its confidence and goes over to the female side, it feels real good to be a drug addict until the drug wears off and you crash. And that's what the world's doing right now. It's crashing, ironically, because of a huge influx of spiritual awareness that gives us access to the male and female sides. But we need this wisdom. It's essential that we understand that whenever you're unhappy as a modern person, you're a woman, you're too far on your male side. You need to come back to your female side. You need to make some changes. And it's not easy without the knowledge. And men, if you're not feeling motivated and confident and in love and passionate, you're way on your female side. You need to come back to your male side. If you can't sustain passion in a relationship, you're a weak man. You're too far on your female side. You need to find your power as a man. And monogamy, for example, that's going out the door. It's like suddenly everybody's changing partners. Well, why do they change partners? Because they can't sustain attraction. See, that's the power of a man. You've got to have that testosterone so a woman can stay in love with you and you can stay in love with her. That's what we want, is to create an intact family. Right now in America with this Black Lives Matter thing, they're doing this crazy thing, which is called Marxism. They want to break down the family unit. And our government's telling women, here's money. If you just don't have a husband, here's money to raise your children. We have all these incentives for getting rid of the husband and depending upon the government. And now we want to have 3-year-olds or people are going to get money for putting your children in school at 3 years old. They should be with their parents during that time. The values being indoctrinated in the schools is going to happen. You don't want those values. We're losing our values. No one values our gender. No one values our ambitions, our authenticity, and having more. People can have more. That's what motivates us to do more. We need to be able to have, this is really important. We don't all just get the same outcome because we're human. We get, the foundation of that is respect, that you have opportunities, equal opportunities, not the equal outcomes. You earn your outcome. You see, you can't just say, everybody's going to get paid the same. You know what happens in that? We've already seen it. That was China. The country just was crashed, poverty. No man's going to do anything if he can't create more to pass on to his children. You see, we have to have that. At the same time, we have to have a compassionate society. That's our female side, which says, if people are sick, we need to help them. Like in a family, the child that gets the most attention is the sick child. The one that gets the most accolades, but not all the nurturing, is going to be one, I can do it myself. Look what I can do. So this is male and female, and we're way out of balance. America is going through this socialism stuff, which is craziness. And you see what happens as a result of it. It's that you get violence. Basically, this is all going too far to the female side. When men are too far to the female side, you can measure it in their body when they're violent. When they're violent, their estrogen levels are soaring, their testosterone levels are descending. We're losing masculinity. And this is a huge wrong direction we're going in. And so we need wisdom and we need strength and we need courage for people to speak out about this. But the most important thing is that we need to be examples of it. That's what we can do for the world. This is an illusion that you can change the world if you can't change yourself first. You work on yourself, live the life, be fulfilled. You will have an effect on the collective consciousness. And then if you have opportunities, make the difference. But putting your fist up with anger at the system, not the answer. It's getting your stick up with anger at your husband or wife. It's not the answer. It's the same thing. It's the same energy. Back to Star Wars. Luke, don't be tempted to the dark force. Don't let the anger. You're just giving the dark force more power. This is all realities. This is realities. We need to, how can you expect the world to have peace and fairness and so forth? We can have that as a goal, which is great. That's not the goal of communism. That's not the goal of Marxism. That's not the goal of socialism. It's like, they hate capitalism. They hate that some people make more than others. Why not? I just love it. I was, the other day, I had a Mexican worker at my house. He's, making $20 an hour. I make a lot more, right? He goes in my garage and I have 3 cars. I got a Mercedes convertible. I got a Tesla and I've got a Bentley race car. Okay. Now, nobody in town has got a Bentley race car. It's a high-end thing. And I was a little bit embarrassed when he saw my Bentley car. I said, yeah, I got that because I wrote so many books in the world. And he says, you don't need to be embarrassed, sir. You worked hard for that and you deserve that. Boy,
Beautiful.
it gave me a lift. You see, that's what masculinity is about. If you work hard and you do more, or you have certain skills and you develop those skills through discipline, you deserve more. And that's the reality of it. And some people don't want to work that hard and they don't get as much. And that's okay. Some people are happy with that. You know, it's what you do creates your life. And we don't want to lose that and just have this, you know, just sucking on the tit of the government all the time. This is centralized government. People need to wake up, and we also need to be responsible for our health. And I just want to mention ivermectin. Ivermectin is a treatment. So if you have any COVID symptoms, do not wait to go to the hospital. You get ivermectin, and there's other treatments as well. In America, they made it illegal. In Australia, and this has been proven, there's over 30 studies showing ivermectin works. This is, you don't have to go to a hospital and go in an incubator. This is all a big overreaction. Do you see how our relationships are an overreaction because we don't have transparency? All of the doctors and the research, they'll never hear it on mainstream media. You have to be censored if you talk about the natural treatments. And I'm not even talking about the natural treatments. I'm talking about drug studies done on drugs. And why don't you get those drugs? Because they're $1 a pill. You only need a few pills. That's it. They're not. They've lost their what is it when anybody can make them, so they're no longer patented basically, and so they can't charge so much. It's $1 a pill. It's a $10 solution. Do you think they're going to tell you that? No, they wanted this huge big thing. And what a crime against humanity. In America itself, I don't know around the world, but over 85 over 500,000 people have died unnecessarily by going to the hospital. 85% of the people who do ivermectin don't go to the hospital. What a great thing that would have been. Did they tell you that? No. So anyway, I get to tell you that today. Ivermectin, check it out. Look for the research on it. You'll find the research is there. Anyway,
thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. I am taking myself, you know, to keep me healthy and immune. And I'm totally with you with everything you said. 100%. I completely resonate with everything you shared. And I really would love to have you once again, because you just have so much to share. We cannot possibly fit it into this short time we have together. And I just want to ask you.
I want to say one other thing, because we're talking about our traumas, and what our traumas all lead us to do is to believe that which is not true. You see, if somebody mistreats you, you feel like you're unworthy and you're not good enough, or you don't have anything to do in this world, or you don't make a difference. The support isn't there because it wasn't there maybe at a time in the past, but it doesn't mean you can't be there in the future. So this is believing a lie. So whenever you're triggered, you're believing a lie. First lie you're believing is that I'm all upset about this one thing. The second lie you're believing is what is the trauma itself. You see, if I come into this world and I'm mistreated, my belief as a child, I don't know what else to believe except that I deserve that. So that's called believing a lie. Believing a lie is traumatic. It's just, what the point I'm making here is, as children, we don't get the truth about who we are by the way we're treated or what people say to us. So if we are not seen for who we are, we believe a lie. There's two forces always in the world. There is good and there is evil. That's just the reality. And what we're here to do is choose which side you want to be on. And then you will grow in love, as opposed to suffering by not growing in love. And that's you know, we can say that's our choice, but it's really not our choice if we're not educated. Once you're educated, now it's your choice. But so many people don't even have the choice, which is why I don't need to do this job anymore for my own security, survival. It's what I have to do. How could you not share what you know to help people when they need help? And of course, we all are here in this world to help. And I want to thank you for inviting me to do your show. It's been a pleasure. And I'll look forward to coming back, get some feedback from this talk, and I'll answer questions people have.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your passion. Hey, can you guys feel this guy's passion? It's just so inspiring. And if people want to get hold of you, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, highly recommend, it takes a while to integrate these ideas, and I
Mhm.
have a lovely website with a lot of free information there. It's called marsvenus.com. Go to marsvenus.com and take our free class. This stuff is just pouring out of our website, and they've got the best high quality videos and so forth. And then if you wish, you can go on to, YouTube or Facebook. I've got lots and lots of videos there. If you just go to John Gray Mars Venus on YouTube or Facebook, and you go for the videos, and every Thursday I do a live video for 4 hours, 3 to 4 hours. People say, how do you talk so much? Because they're all different topics. Because I wrote 28 books on all personal growth, personal development. But I think the most important thing, again and again, is the quality of our relationships.
Mhm.
But as I mentioned, you can't grow in a relationship unless you're growing yourself. So you have to be growing within yourself too.
Exactly, exactly. And that's a good note to end. And thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate it. And I love you and I love your work. And thank you again. And ciao for now.
Ciao for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.